Hello and welcome to another episode of Don't Shit on the Bus. I'm your host, Adam Elmukais, tuning in all the way from Los Angeles, California. It's a beautiful evening here. I'm cooking some dinner in the background, so if you hear boiling water, it's me. This week on the podcast, this is one of the best podcasts to come to if you want to learn about being in the music industry, on tour, off tour, sitting at an office job, whatever you want to do. Our thought process is the more you know about what everybody else does, the better you can do your job and navigate the industry flawlessly. This is an industry all about who you know, who knows you, and that's just kind of how it works. So you got to understand the intricacies of it, and we're here to help. This week on the podcast, we have Lindsey McLemore. Now, Lindsey came to me because, well, she heard us always talking about street teaming on here. And what is street teaming? Well, it's something that I started off doing, but it doesn't exist in the same form these days. However, it still serves a similar purpose. Lindsey works at a company called the Syndicate, or the Syn for short, and they are basically professional street teamers. They have a staff of about 30 or so, and then that staff has a reach of, a couple hundred or more than a couple hundred, 700 people across the US, where they kind of dish out their materials and their schemes and their guerrilla marketing, and they spread it far and wide. And people come to the Syndicate when they want to do kind of like grassroots marketing. So marketing that's very, feet on the ground at a concert, handing something out, pushing a message, making something viral that'll eventually end up on the internet. They're doing all that kind of stuff. And it's a really good way to start working in the music industry. That is why we have Lindsey on this week, so she can share her story of how she got into the industry, which I found very interesting and much more approachable and, like a steady path. There's some big jumps in there, but it seemed a lot better than me telling you to kind of go to your local church, your local venue, and just start talking to people. This seems a little bit more, this is like almost a step before that. The cool thing about street teams is they exist all over the world. Like we'll get into in the podcast, like they're not the same as they used to be, but chances are if you want to get into the music industry by street teaming, you can find something similar in your area. So although the company that we talk about specifically today is just the US, there's definitely something in Canada. There's definitely something in the UK, probably in Australia, probably somewhere in Southeast Asia. Like I am sure you can find something in your area and make it work. But the idea today is just kind of give you an example. And if you can't work for the Syndicate or try to work for them, that's fine. Just try to find something. We want to give you more options, more available ways to get into the music industry because we know that barrier of entry is intimidating. So hopefully you can find something in your area. Do some research. Ask some promoters. Ask some friends. Ask some other concert goers. Join some Facebook groups and find what the local community is doing to promote shows or albums or anything that's going on music related. So if you're a professional in the music industry, this episode might not be for you because it's quite informational and definitely geared towards, beginners, people who are just kind of starting. But maybe you'll find this episode interesting because you're just interested in what street teaming is like in the year 2022. Although I don't know about you, but I still feel like we're in the year 2019. It's kind of like 2019 year 3 times the third time of it. All right, well, cool. I mean, that is all I have to tell you about Lindsey. I just want to go ahead and thank our patrons for supporting the podcast. They donate money every week, and that, pays for everything. Pays for Connor, pays for the articles. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. If you want to sign up for our Patreon, it's in the caption. So go ahead, check it out. And the best part is you can contribute questions to this week's episode or next week's episode, whatever you want. That is the best part. You can kind of become part of the show. So, all right, quick note before we get into the podcast. There was a rather talkative cat on the other end of the line, and that's okay. I actually thought it was pretty funny. And, Lindsey at first was like, we can reshoot these. We could do another take. And I was like, nah, leave it. The podcast is called Don't Shit on the Bus. I guarantee you none of my listeners care. And if you do, I'm sorry. But I thought it was pretty funny. So if you ever see me laughing or like something like that, it's because there was a cat chatting up a storm. Come join in, help us out. Or maybe you just want to support the podcast. That's cool too. Anything helps. And I appreciate it dearly, very dearly. So thank you so much. All right, with that being said, here we go, and I will see you next week.
Hey! Get on this!
Hello, Lindsey. How's it going?
Going well. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, I am excited to have you. We are here because of you. That's kind of cool. I mean, because of me too, but really you reached out to me. You took the initiative and was like, hey, I keep hearing Street Team come up on the podcast. Why don't we talk about it?
Yeah, I am an avid listener of Don't Shit on the Bus. I get the Spotify notifications every time a new episode comes out. Got one today.
Wow, I am honored. Thank you. That's pretty cool. And thank you for reaching out because I don't know. I know we're just starting the podcast, but there's even a lesson in that to me because sometimes all it takes is reaching out and saying, hey, what about this? That's how we had the forum episode when we had Joey on, who was amazing. It was a 2-part episode talking about everything that goes on at the forum. He reached out to me and a few other guests as well have done that. And it's nice because I don't know everybody and that would be unrealistic. So it's nice to meet new people like yourself.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
My theater teacher used to always say, and I'm sure she got this from somebody else, but she's the one who told me it, so she gets credit. There's a pile of shit you do know that's really small. There's a pile of shit you don't know that's kind of big. And there's a pile of shit you don't know that's fucking massive.
I like that. I'm going to take that.
There you go. Yeah. And that is the thing I remember from high school. Okay, cool. Where are you at right now?
I'm in Dallas. I'm recording from my apartment.
Dallas. And we'll talk about where you're from, and how you got into the industry. But before we get into it, I don't know. Why don't you tell us the goal of today's podcast? No pressure, but when you envision this podcast, what is the goal?
Yeah. So like we were talking about a few minutes ago, I listen to the podcast. So whenever you and your other guests have talked about street teaming, like, oh yeah, I started out working on this street team, or I was sending out materials for this street team. Every time I'm like, but you got to talk about the street team. Street teaming is my bread and butter. I run the street team for a company called the Syndicate. We call our street team Center Nation. I want to get the word out there, obviously, because street teams are awesome and they're a great way to start out. It's a great first step. It was my first step into getting where I am now, and I love it.
Hell yeah. And I'm excited to hear more about that. And when you hit me up and talked about this, I was like, oh, this is perfect because I think, and we can both agree, one of the hardest parts about getting into the music industry is getting into the music industry. Like, what's your entry point? There's a really high barrier of entry for a lot of jobs. Like, oh, but what's your experience? Well, I don't have experience. I'm looking for experience. And street teams in the past and in the present have kind of fulfilled this role, although what they do specifically has definitely changed, and we'll talk more about that. They still kind of serve the same purpose, which is cool. And I wish I knew you guys existed.
Yeah, it's all about community, spreading the word about an artist or a genre of music that you're really passionate about, talking to your community.
Yeah, it's what most of us probably already do already, but this is just on another level. You guys are on another level. I can't wait to tell them about some of the projects you guys did, because when you were telling me, I was like, when I think of street teaming, I think of what I did when I was younger, and it was cool, but it was cool because of where I was at in life. What you guys do is actually cool. And we'll get, like I keep saying, we'll get into it, but we will. I just want to make sure we kind of stay. We don't want to be guerrilla style doing this podcast. Stay on some sort of track. But before we get into what the Syndicate, I'm saying it right, like the Syndicate, right? Because you signed the emails the Sin, so I kept referring it to as that. That's the short term for it, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Syndicate. I got it. Center Nation, the Syndicate. Before we do that, we need to learn a little bit about Lindsey. So where are you from?
Yeah, so I am Lindsey McLemore. I'm from Waco, Texas, which does not have this beautiful DIY punk and hardcore scene like you might think. So when I became super passionate about music and I decided I want to work in music, I was in this really difficult position because there weren't a lot of places that I could go to. Especially when I was younger, I didn't have that, super tight-knit music community that a lot of other people do growing up, closer to places like Chicago or LA or New York. And so I had to find my place in a different way. And I did that on the internet. I met people who loved the same type of music that I do. I found new bands and I discovered that street teams exist.
Hey, how long ago was this? Just so I can put it on like your time frame. I can map out, oh, she did this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years. I don't know.
Well, the very first time I learned what a street team was the Fueled by Ramen street team in my MySpace days. So that was probably like 2007, 2008 that I first learned that was a thing.
15 years ago. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, and so I have to, I want to help promote this band. And so I would sign up and I did everything I could to participate in basically what was happening at, that point in time. And we will go further in depth on this in a bit, but they would send out posters or sample CDs or, any number of things. And your job is to spread the word in your city.
We can go into it right now. I think that's perfect. Let's talk about what street teams were like back then, because you're talking about MySpace days, and I remember that. And they were the MySpace days. That was like a time, it was before Facebook, before Instagram, before Twitter. Talk about what street teaming was like for you back then. And then I'm definitely going to add on because I thought it was dreamy.
Yeah, so I was still pretty young in those days. I was 13 in 2007, 2008. So I was not able to do as much with the street team, but I still did everything that I could. And so around that time, it was all about your favorite record label, right? So for me at that time, all my favorite bands were on Fueled by Ramen. And so I wanted to help promote the artists that were on that label. And in the MySpace days, as we're calling it, a lot of what that was is you would sign up on the website and they would send you cool stuff. And your job was to tell your friends. Your job was to go to shows in town and spread the word about whatever the new release is from Fueled by Ramen artists. If it's, a new record from the Academy is, or, whatever it may be, your job is to tell the masses, right? So like just tell everybody about this new record.
Did you listen to today's episode somehow already or no?
No, I haven't listened to today's episode yet.
It's so funny because Johnny is who we had on last week, and Johnny specifically released on his label he started in Chicago, the Academy is like first record, and then he went on to work at Fueled by Ramen.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
Well, I'm
all
extra
ears.
excited to listen to it. But yeah, that's what it was like at that time. But Fueled by Ramen and record labels like that were not the first people to do it. The idea of a street team started decades before that in hip hop and rap communities. The idea of a street team grew from hitting the streets to tell people about your record.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
It became a bigger thing as, individual record labels started to have them rather than just one artist or one group saying, oh yeah, like join my street team. Slowly over time became more specialized. It became a bit more formal, and you started having them for other genres of music that come from this DIY ethos. So the first people to pick it up after hip hop was punk. And from punk, you have all of the subgenres of, going into pop punk. And of course, everything that, Fueled by Ramen as our reference point for now was. But then after a while, you started to have, some people call them street teams for hire, but I think I'd like to use the term like independent street teams.
Is this kind of like moving away from the MySpace days into more of a formal, like when did this happen?
I would say this is happening tangentially or even before MySpace days. So at their peak in size in like 2002, I would say record labels would send out like 100,000 sample CDs to everybody on their street team across the country. And this ranges from everyone from, that might be 200 people in New York City alone to maybe one person in
Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, let's use Boise, Idaho. And so everybody would get them. And then you started to see more independent street teams who would come in and be able to say, hey, we want to help you specialize. So a company like the Syndicate, we started our street team in 2001. A company like the Syndicate would come in and say, hey, let's use our team of people who are the go-to person in their music community. So the people who work for us are super tapped into their community. They are the most informed about where music is happening in their city. So we're going to say, use our street team and you'll be able to reach more people with fewer materials, fewer people working on the project, and you can get more specialized.
It's almost like professionals. I mean, this is what they do. I mean, in a way, right? It's like these people, this is all they do. It's not just they just do it for your label. They do it for everyone and they live and breathe it. It sounds like.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who are professional street teamers, if you want to call it that this is what they do best. And there are some people working on our team that like, they blow me away every time that they submit a report. And I'm like, yes, you're the best.
That's awesome. Yeah. Before we get into like the Syndicate and what you guys do today. I just want to vibe off of you talking about street teaming, because I'm so happy that you listened to the podcast and identified that, hey, they're just glossing over this thing, which to them seems pretty much like, oh, we know what this is, so everybody must know what it is. But we're putting some kind of like, what do you call it? We're putting some kind of perspective on what it means to be on a street teamer back in the early 2000s, because into 2010-ish, because I street teamed from 2005 to 2007 for Victory Records, which is also a Chicago label. And that's how I got into the music industry. So, and there's a lot of people who have this story. And I remember, if everybody can think back to being in high school, I was in high school at the time. So I'm probably like 4 years older than you. We existed in the same time frame. Like literally, if you can remember when you were younger, or maybe you are younger, trying to go to concerts and not having enough money. And then you get to work with this label that you listen to the music on, and like, hey, we're going to send you posters. And you're like, posters? I spend money on posters. That's free money. And then we're going to send you CDs. And you're like, I have Napster, but I keep getting in trouble. So that's great. And then we're also going to send you stickers and all these things you can give to your friends, and these things you can put legally all over your downtown area. And then we're going to get you into shows for free. And you're like, this seems like somebody is fucking with me, because it was literally a dream come true. And that was the first time where I was like, oh, this music is ending up in my hands on purpose, not because somebody just made this sampler. It's crazy. I don't know about you, but when I first went to a concert, I was just blown away by everything. I was like, oh, there's lights, there's all these things going on, and you just don't realize how much work goes into it. And that's the same for street teaming. I just didn't realize there was, somebody making these samplers, designing them, sending them out, finding street teamers, contacting these people. It was a full living, breathing organism of, spreading music before we had the, social networks we have now and all these other ways to spread it around, when the internet was in its early days. So I just wanted to relate. I was really excited that you did this, because it's such an exciting time in my career, in my head, that I really maybe romanticize a bit. But, it's always exciting when you're like, oh, I love music. Now I get to work in the music industry. This is cool.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, anytime that you've been to a show and like on your way out the door, somebody has handed you a flyer or a CD or a sticker, as you're talking about, like every single step of that was done intentionally. They designed this postcard to attract your attention at this show on this day at this time. Every single thing that goes into that, there's a reason for it. And the people talking to you about it are the best people for that job, because they love the music too.
Venues hate stickers.
Stickers are not a common promo material
before the show,
anymore.
especially. They become vandalism pretty quick. So I can understand why. Not to, sorry, that just came to my mind where I was like, oh yeah, venues don't like stickers.
Well, no, it's one of the things you were talking about earlier when you said, oh yeah, and slap these stickers all over your town legally. And I'm like, yes, legally.
They would just give me a stack of posters and CDs, and the posters, I would just go downtown and tape them everywhere. But the local venues had that on lock, man. I was like competing for turf.
A lot of local venues and a lot of local promoters have their own street teams.
Yeah, that's true. Good. Take note, everybody. Even if you can't join a syndicate or work with somebody like this, local venues, local promoters, they all have street teams. Okay, cool. Well, now that everybody knows what the hell street teaming is, because we always talk about it and we never really put a face to it, where did you go? So you're street teaming, you're 13, you're doing that for a while. Is the next thing that you did just work for the syndicate, or were there steps in between? Like, what did you do on your journey into, quote unquote, the music industry?
Yeah, no, the next thing I did was definitely not start working for the syndicate and run their street team. There were several steps. After high school, I went to college, actually, which is not a super popular decision. Not a whole lot of people do that in the music industry. I thought I wanted to be a music journalist, and I wrote for a webzine for a little bit, and I liked it. But I realized, talking with a couple of new friends that I was making working in music, that that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. Maybe do something different. And then I kind of started to really envision what I wanted to do in music, and I thought I wanted to tour. Like everybody listening to this podcast, I'm sure. And I was at a really big crossroad in my life. I had a year left before I was going to graduate, and I wanted to drop out. I felt like I was falling behind in my career. I was watching a lot of my peers who were around the same age as me, who had been wanting to do the same things as me, getting a little bit farther ahead than I was at the time. And that.
Yeah. How's that feel? Because I feel like we can all relate to that. Do you think it's right to feel that way? Or like, what was the internal dialogue you had for that?
I think it's normal to feel that way. I don't think it's right or good to feel that way. I remember I was freaking out. I was sitting on my kitchen floor and I called my friend slash mentor in the industry, a mutual friend of ours. And I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. And he's like, hey, me neither. But after he got up over that, he talked to me on the phone for like an hour, I bet, and just kind of helped me not map out my life, but actually put into perspective where I was. And it was, hey, these are the things that you can do right now. Are you doing these things? Are these things happening? And if the answer is yes, do this. If the answer is no, do this. And ultimately, I came to the decision with our friend's help to stay in college. I graduated and then I went into doing other things. And I was looking for opportunities in music elsewhere. I realized that I didn't want to tour, which is totally okay. There are office jobs in music. I have one, but it was hard to get a job. It was really, really hard. And it's something that we've all experienced. Everybody listening to this podcast has experienced it before. This is a who you know industry. And it's really important to network and to get to know people. And so I spent as much time as possible after college doing that. Anytime I went to a show, I introduced myself to somebody. I interned for a local promoter in the Dallas area, Third String Productions.
What's that, Zemer?
Yes.
Nice.
Shout out to Mike.
Sorry. There you go. Hey, Mike.
Yeah. And so I went to a bunch of music festivals and just introduced myself to literally anybody that I could meet. And I joined Facebook groups for people who work in music. And it was through one of those Facebook groups that I saw a post for somebody looking for some help doing some street team work at Lollapalooza. And I was like, I'm going to be at Lolla. Like, let's do it.
Wait, before you go forward, I know where this is heading just because we talked a little bit and I'm not trying to cut you off. I just want to say how cool, in my opinion, it is that you did all of those things. You joined Facebook groups, you went to shows and met people, and you're saying it so nonchalantly. But I'm sure at the time it was a lot of hard work, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe that's easier for you. But regardless, that's great because that is, I think, really valuable for other people to hear that, these are things you can do. Like there's no rules. You just do it. And you made it happen. And that's cool.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it was. Is like, I don't know the right way to do this. So I'm just going to do it this way until somebody tells me to do it another way.
Hell
there
yeah.
was no
like
Don't
that.
Shit on the Bus podcast for me to listen to.
You're too kind.
I mean, it was hard. Like when I had that internship working at Third String in Dallas, I was still living in Waco. I was driving 100 miles 2-3 times a week to go and sit in their office and help them with literally anything that I could and just sit there and absorb information. And I learned so much just by being in the same room as those people. And now I'm friends with many of them, which is great. And I get to work with them in different ways, but like it took a lot of effort.
I know I keep interrupting you and I'm so sorry, but I wanted really, really genuinely want to know what kinds of things you learned just being in an office with somebody, because kind of like in the past where we said street team and describe it, I think that's something we could gloss over. And for somebody who's maybe never been in that position before, just putting some examples or some details into what that looks like for somebody like you would really be helpful. It doesn't have to be much, but do you think you could, I don't know, say some skills you learned? Or
a lot of what I did was social. So learning how to manage socials for a business that's focused on music, right? And so I learned things just like what kind of language to use. Like music is a very personable industry. And so you want to sound like a real person whenever you're talking to people online, in person, whatever it is. So when you're writing something out for a social post, you want to sound like a real person and you don't want to sound like, you're out of touch. You want to use the language that people are using. You want to, depending on, your personal brand and things like that, you may want to use memes, you may want to use slang, you may want to use abbreviations and emojis and things like that. Other things that, I learned were just like how to talk to a client.
Yeah.
How to talk about clients with your peers. There are just some things that it's hard to learn until you see somebody doing it.
Yeah, you have to be there and experience it. It sounds like you can't, it'd be hard to do a podcast on that because it's so hard to talk about all the little intricacies of working in an office with somebody else or, all these things you're talking about.
Exactly. And I think an important distinction to make is that this is something that I learned during an internship that was in an
Cat?
office. Oh, you heard
Is that your
her.
cat?
That's Josie.
It sounds like a baby.
Oh, that's because she's on the other side of the apartment. I'm sure she's on her way.
Oh my God. I love that her name is Josie.
Yeah, she's Josie the pussycat.
That's funny. All right. I'm sorry I had to interrupt you for that. You told me if you can hear the cat to say it. Oh, what were you saying?
I'm sure she'll come say hello in a few.
Yes, perfect. Anyway, continue.
I think it's important to make the distinction that I'm using working in an office as an intern as my reference point. But really what this is I learned a lot from listening to other people do their job. So this is something that could absolutely be adapted to working in a venue. You know, if you're going to a show and you're really interested in learning about what a certain person does or what a certain position entails, doing your best to situate yourself near this person that wouldn't necessarily, hinder them from doing their job, and just trying to listen. If you hear words that you don't recognize or terminology, look it up on your phone and try and figure it out. It was all about listening for me.
Well, that's great. Oh, man. And speaking of listening, I want to listen to your story about going to Lollapalooza, which is where I cut you off before to get you to tell us a little more about that. So you were street teaming. You found a Facebook post about people needing help, or you weren't street teaming. You just were looking on Facebook groups and you saw that people needed help at Lollapalooza. What did you do next?
Next, I showed you my cat, Josie, because she just jumped on my desk.
Yeah, I heard a purr. Oh, Josie.
Josie, say hi.
That is very cute. That was a very cute meow. Oh my God. She's cute. Mark's in the background. He's jealous if you could hear, but he's sleeping.
He popped up earlier. I saw him. So I was on my way to Lollapalooza. I was literally on the plane looking at Facebook posts and saw that somebody was looking for some street team help outside of the festival. And I was like, I can do it. I sent my resume. And by the time I landed, I got an email saying, hey, thanks so much for your application, but we're actually fully staffed. We'll let you know if anything changes. And I was like, okay, I'm still going to Lollapalooza. This is fine. And I was in Chicago, and I had decided I was going to go to the Shameless house, like the show Shameless takes place in Chicago. The houses that are in the show, you can actually go and visit, not go inside their houses, but they're real places. And so I was there, and I got a text from somebody saying, hey, it's so-and-so from the Syndicate, somebody who no longer works with us. And I got a text saying, hey, are you still in Chicago? We could use your help with some street team stuff. Are you available? And I was like, yeah, I'm available. I would love to help. And they're like, great. Can you meet us at this location in 20 minutes? And I was like, no, I am 40 minutes away. And they were like, that's fine. We'll see you in 40 minutes. And I was like, cool. I showed up and they're like, hey, thank you so much for meeting us on such short notice. I know that we didn't give you much information. This is top secret. It's something we're doing, at the last minute. We've decided to bring in a couple more people. And I ended up working on an ice cream truck that had been wrapped to look like the album cover for LCD Soundsystem's American Dream. And the ice cream truck music that was playing was actually remastered versions of songs from the album that had not yet been released, made to sound like ice cream truck music.
That's pretty cool.
It was awesome. And so my job for 3 days was to tell people about music, which heck yes, love that, and give them free ice cream. I was everybody at Lollapalooza's best friend, and it was awesome.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I felt absolutely in love with experiential marketing, which is a little bit of it's a step up from what I had been doing with street marketing. It's just a bit more involved. It allows people to go in and really experience a brand or an album in this case in a way that they wouldn't be able to necessarily do from their homes. And I made great friends with people who had hired me. I met my now boss, Julia. I met our general manager, Graham, and stayed connected with them. So fast forward about a year, I decided I was going to move to New York City.
That's extreme. Just saying, that's an extreme move for you.
It was big. I was like, you know what? I'm not really finding what I want in Dallas. I could go to LA or I could go to New York. And I had more friends in the New York area. So I was like, I'm doing it. It was just one of those things where the stars aligned, and I had a friend of a friend who was looking for somebody to move in with her. And I was like, I can do it, because my apartment lease was up anyway. Things just worked out.
All the pieces were coming together. You were saying yes, and you were listening, and you were doing all the right things so that when these, moments presented themselves, you're like, all right, we're going to New York.
when a door opened, I made sure to walk through it. That's really what it was. And so I moved to New York and I was looking for jobs. I was looking for any kind of work experience. I wasn't able to get internships at that point because in New York, in order to have an internship, you have to be a currently enrolled college student. And so I wasn't eligible for that, but I wanted anything that I could get, and I could not find anything. I was, looking for things that were not in the industry, just, something so that I could pay my bills, and wasn't finding anything. And I was like, you know what? Maybe New York isn't for me. Maybe the next step for me is to move somewhere else. And 2 days before I was supposed to move out of New York, I get an email from Julia, my now boss.
Lollapalooza.
Yeah, we want you to sell ice cream. No, it was, hey, are you still in New York? We have a position coming available and I think you'd be a really good fit. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. And you're like, oh, are you available at all to come in for an interview, towards the end of this week? And I was like, can I come in tomorrow? And they were totally weirded out by that, but they said yes. I went in, I talked to them, felt absolutely in love with everybody who works there. And it was a fit. I started the job. It was awesome. As I was walking out the door, I called my mom and I was like, hey mom, I don't think I'm moving. I think I got a job.
And this is the Syndicate, right?
Yep. This is the Syndicate.
Okay.
This is where I'm working now. It was awesome. I didn't tell them that I was supposed to be moving out of the city the very next day until I think like 6 months into my time working with them, because I didn't want to say it certainly before I got hired, but it was a funny story to tell later. But I started working at the Syn and started becoming even more involved with the street team. And eventually I took over the reins pretty much entirely. And now the Sittner Nation street team is my baby. And I get to work with street team reps all day, every day. I love it.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that it happened so abruptly. And, I think before we talk about what the Syndicate does, we should talk about just as a whole what street teams do in the current day and age. And keep in mind, there's not nearly as many of them as there used to be. And that's because it's kind of changed, right? Like labels started having them, like you were saying, and now do labels even have them anymore? Or what's the meta of street teams in the US or worldwide? Like who has them?
Ultimately, the goal is the same. It takes somebody who loves music to spread the word about music, period. That's what the goal of street teaming is. But instead of it being, in the early days, you had it starting with hip hop and punk, and it was people talking about, bands in their local community. And then you kind of saw it evolve into more of being label specific. And then I would say like at its peak, it was, so large that labels were spending, tons and tons of money and sending out, 100,000 CDs just to promote one album. And then as the industry started to shift into a more internet facing, industry, you saw a shift away from physical and in-person marketing like that.
I think that I'm going to be honest. It's fine that Josie is screaming. The podcast is literally called Don't Shit on the Bus. There's not a single listener who's like, I really came in for content and then the cat was screaming and it sounded funny and I'm never listening again. Like if that is where they're at, the music industry is not for them. But I will say my favorite part was when she was close to the mic and I could hear her like really nice purrs. And they were so, I don't know when they're going to come up in audio, but if you heard those guys, that was neither me nor Lindsay. That was a cat.
Oh, I should have said it was Connor.
Yeah, it was Connor on the other line. All right, cool. I think you were still talking there.
Yeah, so you saw them, be really, really big in the early 2000s, and then you saw them start to get a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller, and some labels started to do away with them entirely. And the reason for that is because there were other people who were doing street teaming independently of being at a label, such as the Syndicate, where we were able to get more specialized. We're able to tap into these specific people who love country music in New York City and say, hey, we're promoting, new music from this country artist. Can you spread the word in New York? That person will say, heck yes, I'm your person for this. And so that person knows exactly where country music fans hang out in New York City. They know what country music fans like. So they're going to be the best person to go out and talk to those people and reach those audiences. And one of the ways that the Syndicate is able to reward these people for being experts in their field in many ways is that we can pay them for their work. because we know that the work they're doing takes a bit more work, it takes a bit more skill, we ask for, photos, we ask for their feedback. We genuinely want to know, like, what was your experience like? Who did you talk to? Who was the most excited? Who wasn't excited? And we take that feedback and we can actually deliver that to our clients. And, in exchange for them doing this work, we will pay them actual money for doing it. Whereas, in a lot of what we've talked about as the MySpace days and, traditional street teaming, the way that most people think about it. Yeah, historically, people working on street teams would be rewarded with things like concert tickets and exclusive merch. And, maybe they get first access to tickets on a tour. They'd get a lot of stuff specific to that artist or that record label.
Yeah, it kind of made sense too. Like you were saying, you were 13 and I was 16, and like those things were honestly, to be quite honest, were more valuable than money to me at the time. But now that you're getting people who are, arguably professionals who have done this for a long time and are skilled at what they do, you have to pay them because it's just not the same that it used to be. I would say, that's how current street teaming is. But it's great to know you guys exist. And I know we kind of slid it in there effortlessly, but if you're looking for a street team in your area, check out the venues, check out the promoters, check out whoever's local, and you see posters up. Chances are it's not the owner of the company going around and postering the city. It's probably a street team of some sort. Or from the US, we've got the Syndicate. All right. So tell me a little bit more about the Syndicate. Like, what are you as a company? And then after that, we'll go into kind of how you operate and some of the cool things that you've done.
Yeah, so the Syndicate is an entertainment marketing agency. We were founded in 1998. And basically, we do anything and everything that we can to get your music out there, to get your music out to the world. The company was founded initially for radio promotions. So it was calling radio stations and telling them about a new record. Like, hey, have you heard about this new album from this band? I know that, you'd really like it because you listen to this and this. And then from that, some conversations got started with our clients at record labels who were like, hey, we were wondering if, you could get people at this college to, hang some posters around town. And we're like, well, we have these relationships with a lot of the college radio stations. We'll see if our contacts there know of anybody who might be interested in this. And so we were able to use those connections to, find people here and there who could, hang up some posters around town or maybe pass out some CDs for other projects and things like that. And from that, our street team was born. Like many things, it was just kind of born out of necessity and ability. It's like, can you do this? Yeah, we can do that. Let's do it. We started from there. And initially it was, sending out, postcards and posters and stickers and all that stuff, along with a disposable camera and a printed out sheet of paper asking for feedback and a padded envelope, so that after this person has hung all these posters around town and taken all these pictures, they can physically mail that back to our office.
Oh, to be in the 90s again.
Yeah.
So much easier now. Hey, hit me up on WhatsApp or whatever, like let's just send me photos on Instagram. So much easier than that. Oh man.
Oh my gosh. It's so much quicker. Like it used to be that, we would send out all those materials and then the team would send all that stuff back to us. And from there, we would physically, develop those photos, organize them into binders and physically send that back to our client, who would then physically show it to the band or the artist that we were promoting. And so there were so many steps that would take months, right? But now I can send a text message if I need to and say, hey, are you available to pass out some flyers at this show tonight? Yes? Okay, cool. Can you pick up those materials from this local printer at this place? We'll pay for your gas. And they say, yep, can do. And they do that, and they take those photos and they send them to me, and I send it to the client the next day. And that is an entire street marketing campaign from basically conception to reporting within 24 hours. Normally it's not that fast, but it could in theory happen like that.
And your team is, you told me the numbers, but it's about 30 people on staff or people who work with you all the time. But then your reach is, about.
We've got 30 people who work at the Syndicate in our office. And we do more than just marketing. We still do the radio promotion. We do, traditional marketing and digital marketing in addition to street marketing, but we also have a publicity team. So we do a lot of stuff. But then when you look to the street marketing, specifically the team that I help run, we've got more than 650 people actively working on our team. So these are people all over the country that when I press send on an email to tell everybody that we have this new campaign for this band that I'm really excited about, that goes to like 650 inboxes around the country.
They're like your soldiers. They're gearing up and they're hitting the streets with products or, actually it's, to be honest, it's cooler than that. Like the one you described is that's kind of like your everyday street teaming, which I think is cool. Like you have to have like, what's it called? Your bread and butter, your bare bone. I don't know the saying.
Yeah, the bread and butter. That's what it is. Passing out flyers at a show, that's our bread and butter. We can do that. I don't want to say any day of the week because we like to have prep time and need to make sure the right person is available, but we can make it happen. But it's the fact that the Syndicate has established itself as a trustworthy, street team. And the fact that we've worked with so many of these clients, we've worked with artists from the time of I've never heard of you to I'm releasing my next album after I just won a Grammy and took over the entire world with my last tour. Can you help me with this? We work with people from all stages of their career. And it's because our team will deliver the goods. We hire, the people that we hire are good at what they do and they love it. And which makes me even happier because it's no secret. I love what I do. And it's, that experience that allows us to be able to do some really, really cool stuff.
And you guys do more than just the bread and butter. Like I really like the projects you talked to me about before, specifically the Panic at the Disco one. That's really cool to me. And that stems from what I feel like how much of a fan you guys are, like how much you really understand, we're going to send this message home. Do you think you could tell us about that gig from conception, like how these clients found you, what they asked for, and then what you delivered and how you did it? Because I want to know everything. Like I want to know the whole thing.
Yeah. So we were approached by Panic at the Disco's team to help them to announce an album and a world tour. And so they wanted some really cool ideas. One of the things that they came to us with was, hey, can you make a crop circle? And we said, yes. We had never done a crop circle before, but we said, yes. Like Panic at the Disco wants us to make them a crop circle. We will make them a crop circle.
Get us some crops.
Yeah. Anybody who has seen pictures of the Panic at the Disco crop circle, we helped with that. It was not, just us, but we helped with that. And it was so much fun. One element of that album cycle that we helped with is to announce some secret shows.
Wait, what were the crop circles for? What's the purpose? We just made them.
Yeah, we just created some random crop circles and there were no details or anything like that. The crop circle was specifically designed to look like Panic at the Disco's logo that they were using around the time of the Pray for the Wicked album. So it's this triangle and there's the Panic exclamation mark in it. And then there's, some crop circle looking things in it as well. And so we took this design and we gave it to a farmer, and this farmer drove his tractor or whatever it is that he does and created this crop circle in real life. And we were able to use a drone to capture footage, use that to kind of give a teaser to what else was going to be coming.
I was picturing you stomping on corn. That was what I was picturing, it's okay that the farmer did it, but it's a funnier image in my mind to think of like a bunch of people in a field just punching down stalks of corn. My text is going to show for a bit. Have you ever been to a cornfield? Corn is tough. Yeah, I'm from Wisconsin and my backyard was legitimately a cornfield. Yeah, it is tough.
Yeah, corn is tough. Those leaves will cut you. Things are dangerous.
Or hide my cat so that I can't find him ever.
Oh.
That's what the cornfields used to do. My cat Mittens used to always run away.
I love that you had a cat named Mittens. That's so pure.
Yeah, have you seen where cats have an extra finger? Do you know that? It's like a mutation. There's a term for it. But they get an extra, they have their paw and they get an extra one and their hands are huge. And he was that, so Mittens.
That's cool.
All right, anyway, Panic at the Disco crop circles, drone footage, people see that. Next, you also got asked to do something.
So the next element of this Panic at the Disco project that we worked on was to hire some of members of our street team to dress as nuns and go to some of their underplay shows. And an underplay show is an industry term for when an artist who typically can sell out arenas or stadiums will play at a much smaller venue, a much more intimate venue for their fans. And so Panic did a small tour of underplay shows where the only way that you could find out about the next show is if you were at the previous one. So what our team did was they went to these underplay shows dressed as nuns, and their job was to tell fans about the next date of the tour. That was the only way that you could find out about where Panic is going next, is by these flyers.
Wait, but they didn't go to the underplay. They went to the main show, right? Like the big show, and then passed it out, and those went to the underplays, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to correct that because that could be confusing. But keep going.
Yeah, so our team went to the shows to tell fans about the next date, which is this underplay show, a much smaller venue. And the only way they could find out about it is if they had seen our team dressed as nuns passing out these flyers that had the details of that show. The extra cool part is that the only thing our team was allowed to say is pray for the wicked. So they were dressed as nuns, passing out these flyers for these really cool shows, but all they could say is pray for the wicked.
Nightmares are made of this.
It may be nightmare fuel, but it was super cool. And so it, got a lot of attention, and it is one of my favorite things that we've done. It's one of the favorite things that a lot of the people who work on that project have done. We actually announced it as a secret. And so whenever we put the word out that we had this happening, we're like, hey, we have a secret campaign. Can't tell you anything about it, but if you want to work on it, we can get you involved. People who were working on it were not allowed to open that box of materials until the day of the event. So they had no idea what they were working on. And they find these nun outfits. And of course, we checked with them that they'd be comfortable, wearing a costume if necessary. And when they opened it, they were, sending emails back to the office like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. They took so many pictures, and pictures got all over the internet, which was really fun for us.
That's kind of the goal, right? You want people to see this and spread it around and to generate hype. And because obviously Panic at the Disco isn't like we're playing at the Stone Pony or in Asbury Park, we're going to make a ton of money. No, the goal of this is publicity, and you're kind of the megaphone for it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that is authentic to the fan base. It's something that they're used to seeing. They're used to getting flyers and stuff like that at shows, and doing something very dramatic and off the wall is very on brand for Panic. So to give fans this extra experience, even if they couldn't go to the show, to the smaller show, it was an additional experience that they got to see this in person.
Yeah. Or you speak of it like it's such an honor to do it. But I think I would be like, I don't know if I would have taken it, because I would have been like, there's a nun. They're coming to me. They have something in their hands. Everything in my life that's happened up till this moment tells me to turn the other way, which I would be punished. I wouldn't be able to go to the Panic at the Disco secret show because I wasn't open to this thing happening. But who knows? After a concert, are you kidding me? I'd probably be like, let's go. Because after a concert, energy is like none other. It's people are
none other.
No, is that the? Oh wow. Wow. No, I get it now. I get it. When you said it, though, the way you said it at first, I was like, shit, did I say something?
I wasn't trying to correct you. I was just making a bad joke.
No, I get the pun now. But at first, when you said it, I didn't get the pun. So I was like, oh no, what did I do? Now I get it. That's really good. I should have been, none other. I meant to say that. It was on purpose. I mean, it's so cool that you guys, it really is like grassroots, or I called it like guerrilla. It's like you're taking marketing and putting so much care and passion and thoughtfulness into it that it's effective, and it's more effective than those Facebook ads you see or the Instagram ads. Like those things, they cost a lot of money. They might get a few people, but I guarantee everybody who got, like you said, this Pray for the Wicked flyer from a nun after the show is going to remember that for the rest of their lives, whether or not they went to this show. They probably saved the flyer. Hopefully they didn't throw it away, because we know that a lot of people do that. And that is such a cool thing to generate for fans. It's such a cool experience. It's world building. It's brand changing. And what an awesome thing to be a part of.
You use the words guerrilla marketing and grassroots marketing, and we use those terms every day. Now there's, the grassroots marketing is something that I think that term has really become almost more common than street team marketing or street marketing these days, especially with some of our larger clients who may not be in the music space. Our clients who are brands usually use the term grassroots marketing. When it comes to us, it's the same work. It works in exactly the same way. And then guerrilla marketing is definitely something that is a bit different, but street teaming can absolutely be guerrilla marketing, just not always.
It's something you do, but it's not the only thing you do. You guys do a lot. You're a lot more than a street team. It's cool. I really appreciate you not only coming on here and just explaining what street teaming is and breaking it down, but explaining what your company does and the lengths that kind of goes to just promote music, which could be such a simple thing, but this is more fun. This is more fun than posters and stickers.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all music fans. That's why we do what we do. Any project that our company works on, there is, at least one person in the office who is absolutely stoked on it. We love working on passion projects, and we're always chasing our dream clients. That's something that's, they asked me, who are your top 5 dream clients? And I've started checking off that list already, and it's awesome.
That's great. If people who are listening want to get involved, keep in mind this is US only. Do you think you kind of talk about the route they take to potentially get involved with the Syn or the Syndicate? I want to call it the thing you call it. What do you call it?
We call it the Syn.
All right, get involved with the Syn.
So specifically talking street team, if you would like to join the street team, go to thesyn.com/join and fill out the application. And the application is really simple. It's just our way of getting to know you. You don't have to have a ton of experience. There are people working on our street team that this is their very first paying job ever, let alone their first paying job in music. And what really matters to us is that you have a passion for music and pop culture and you want to learn more.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then after somebody works on the street team, what can they expect? I know we went over a few things that you guys have done, but what does it look like? Is it once a week? Is it once a month? Is it once a year? Is it whenever something comes up in their area? Or what does it feel like to work with you guys?
Yeah, so it depends on where you're located. We have obviously the big 3, New York, LA, Chicago. We have clients asking about those markets all the time. So those are definitely, our busiest places, but anybody in the US can apply to join the team. We want to be everywhere. We don't want 650 people on the team. We want 1,000 people on the team. We want to have this, we want to be able to say, yes, we can go anywhere.
Stevens Point, Wisconsin. My mom is there. She's got you. She listens to the podcast.
Send your mom a link.
I was sending my mom a link. All right, keep going.
Once we're on the street team, we will send out, emails to everybody on the team whenever we have something that's happening, not just in your area, but anywhere. Something that a lot of the people on our team do is they travel. So for big events like South by Southwest that happens in Austin every year.
Theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically. We have people who come from all over the country to work with us at South by.
Oh, cool. And they're going to meet each other then and network, and that's pretty sweet.
It's awesome whenever I get to see, whenever I get to be there in person. So whenever things happen wherever I'm living at the time, I always like to show up and introduce people and get to know people a little bit better than just, what I get during our brief interview or, sending emails back and forth. I like to actually know people. Once you get an email, and you're like, oh, I want to do that. You can sign up on our website with the account you get whenever you join the team. And we will send you everything you need to be able to work on the project, along with instructions all the time. And then after you've, done that for a while, if you decide, oh, I'm ready to do something else, you can always put that you've worked on the street team on your resume. I get emails, I would say once every couple of weeks from people saying, hey, I've worked on the street team for X number of years. I'd like to, look for other stuff. Can I list you as a reference? And so long as I've actually worked with you, the answer is always going to be yes. We have people who have worked on our street team who have gone on to work at record labels, who've gone on to tour, who've gone on to work in bands. And so it's really cool whenever people who maybe started out working on the street team, I can look back on whenever I did their interview, whenever I first read their application, and now they're coming to me as a client, or I'm going to them to work with them as a partner. There's always opportunity for growth. And then of course, if you fall in love with the Syndicate as a company and you want to work with us, we have a physical office. Obviously, I'm working remotely these days, but like join the team in office. We do more than just street marketing, as y'all have already heard.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a part of the podcast that I have the most difficult with, it's getting people into this industry. And really, there's no excuse for anybody who's US based for this, or if you're not US based, finding a similar thing in your area. This is a great way to get involved if you're struggling and it's not, it's not a full-time commitment. It's something you can do once in a while, here and there, and get paid for it and learn all of the skills. I mean, Connor will tell you he's recently moved to LA and learning a lot of skills about being involved in the industry. A lot of it is talking with people through email, learning how to communicate, learning how people work, what is the jargon that everybody speaks with, just getting this hands-on experience. I can't stress how important it is. And this is a perfect opportunity. I myself make the mistake of thinking, hey, if it's really easy to attain, maybe it's not worthwhile. But this looks pretty within reach and is endlessly valuable. So I would encourage you heavily to at least apply, shoot your shot. There's no downside. I don't know. I can't think of a downside. You lose 10 minutes of your day. That's not bad.
Yeah. And one thing I want to add to that is it's not just the experience of working on the team that, you'll learn things. Is you'll meet people who are also working on that team with you. And through that, you'll be like, oh, hey, are you going to this show on Saturday? And you may meet up later, and you may meet another person that they know who works in the music industry, or through this person that you met, they might work on another street team and you can work on a second street team, or they may do something else. Yeah, that piques your interest. And, the thing that I found difficult with the idea of networking is how do I start that conversation, or when is the right time, or anything like that. But when you're working with somebody, that's a perfect time. Make small talk, learn what they're doing in the community, and you can grow together. I see people who meet working on projects, and then they go off and they start doing other things together. They become friends, or they will work together on other projects. And, I get to see them grow, which is really, really cool.
No, that's great. It's wonderful being part of other people's journeys. And it sounds like you have been a part of many, and hopefully we'll continue that. And, it's cool that you get to work with people after they leave your company and, go on to do their journey. So the thing I like about this is I think that you providing all these experiences and how this helped you in your career is really going to help a lot of other people. Give them that, it's a new year, it's 2022. Like, people are setting goals, and I think this is going to push them in the right direction to at least help them, move forward. Because I admit a lot of the time on the podcast, we're like, go to a show, which isn't really possible right now. Go meet people, go talk to people, which can be hard. Starting with an email and just street teaming, and meeting the people in your local area, that's a very good first step. So I think that thanks for doing this is basically what I'm getting to. It's pretty, it's just an hour time of your day, but you're really helping a lot of people, and we appreciate it.
Well, I hope so. I still experience, what we're talking about is what do I do? How do I do that? For example, what I'm doing right now, I've never been on a podcast before. I've never spoken about what I do in this type of capacity, and I didn't know how to do it. And so I was like, I'm just going to send an email. And then I didn't have the right email. And then I sent a DM, and then I got the right email. And now I'm here.
Yeah, I know. We're quick. We did it. You did great. Well done.
Thanks.
10 out of 10 would podcast again. All right. We will get you out of here, but we will leave all the links that everybody needs to find all the information that we have mentioned on the show in the caption as usual. Thank you so much for your time here, Lindsey. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And you have listened to the podcast, so you know the one question we do ask everybody, which I know you didn't tour, but if you would have toured, and you can think of yourself, the show's over, or it's morning time, and you're about to take a shower, are your feet covered in shoes, or are you going barefoot? Shower shoes or no shower shoes?
I have thought long and hard about how I would answer this question. And if I'm in a place where the shower is so gross, I feel I need to wear shower shoes, I'm probably not going to shower there. So no shower shoes. But I would like to say that I would probably be that person that gets a Planet Fitness membership so I can shower in a clean shower no matter what, wherever I go.
Wow. PD's to Planet Fitness. She's just showering every day in a clean shower. Hey, if the Planet Fitness shower is cleaner than the venue shower, that should say a lot about it.
I've heard some horror stories about venue bathrooms. Ugh.
Oh, yeah. I've been to Europe. All right. Thank you so much. That's all we got for this. Thank you so much. That's all we've got for today. And I will see you guys next week on Don't Shit on the Bus. Take it away, Kevin.